Welcome to Inspire Me Forward. My name is Linda J. Watson, and I am the founder and host of this beautiful series of conversations. This is a space where guests from all walks of life and every corner of the world share their stories. We talk about life, love, and everything in between. And now we are on season 7. Before we dive in, I would like to share that the topics discussed in this season may be sensitive in nature and triggering to some. Please do take care of yourself and seek support as and if needed. So, the title of this group of episodes is Positive Foundations for When Life Throws a Time Shift. There are times in our lives when our relationship with time changes. Sometimes it's a slow burn, sometimes a U-turn. Your perspective of time might evolve into a space where you value it more. Perhaps it speeds up, or maybe it slows down. However you are affected, life does throw time shifts. And in those moments, we are called to look for positive foundations, resources that help us hold our bearings and tend to our resiliency, helping us stay grounded and not float away altogether. This season, we will speak with folks who have experienced those time shifts and stayed upright through the dynamic force, the change, and the landing. We will discuss what kept them standing. What did they hold on to so they could settle in to that new time perspective with a gentle heart and feet firmly on the ground? Welcome to season 7 of Inspire Me Forward. Let's talk time shifts. But before we introduce our guest today, let's take a moment of quiet to land in this space. Let our day go for just a while and be present for the wisdom that is offered in this episode. All right. Welcome to our next episode of Inspire Me Forward, and welcome to our guests, and welcome to you all for being here, whether you're listening to this shortly after we record it or long after we record this. So I'm going to give a moment for my guests to introduce themselves. So Leslie, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for checking in today. We're going to have an interesting conversation. I'll just tell a little bit of an introduction about myself. So, my name is Leslie Becker. I've been an artist throughout my life, visual art, but also I've been a female drummer, starting drum lessons in 1977 when I was about 12 years old. So, that already makes for an interesting kind of life. But the story really starts after when I go to art college. You know, when you finish high school and you start your life, I went downtown to the Ontario College of Art, and that's where I will be beginning my story.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So before we jump in and give you the time and the space and the floor, um, time is such a funny thing. And we've talked about this over our last 5 or 6 episodes is what is time? And I often refer back to a story that one of my authors from Equine Leadership magazine wrote. She wrote about time. And one of her quotes is, "Time is not one thing. It does not work in only one direction or at one pace, but it is undeniably one of the greatest structures by which we can define, experience, and create our existence, including our connections with each other." And I think that is such a profound quote because we see time as linear and from one end to the other, from one end of a life to another, from one end of a day or beginning of a day to the end of a day, seasons, years. Here, she's thinking, challenging us to see it as different than that. And I see in life that people get stuck sometime and they feel that time slows down for them and time speeds up at other times. So it's fun and profoundly expansive to play in the space of time while we learn and hear stories of people's lives and what they've gone through. And I am really looking forward to hearing your story today, Leslie, and playing in that space of time and talking about parts of it and how it all was for you. So let us begin, and I will give you the stage.
Thanks very much, Linda. I'm really honored to come on and speak with you, so thanks for the opportunity. I also think the time, it's a really interesting topic because, and it changes over the years as when we're younger and then middle-aged and then older, our experience of time or our way that we value time, different things like that, it changes. So here I am at whatever, 19 or 20 years old. At the time I graduated high school, people still went to grade 13. So I did that. So I guess instead of being 18, I was 19 when I left for art college. Um, so having to do with time at that young age, nothing really mattered. So there I am. I'm already playing in bands. I started playing in bands when I was 15. Um, And I guess I had tried different groups and things like that, but the main thing was I'd always been making art with clay and sculpture and drawing, painting. So I really wanted to get into art college and see where that would take me. So when I went to art college, it was almost immediately, I guess within the first year or two, I met some like-minded people who were musicians. And then we were in a band together, and it became very kind of serious because we were getting very popular very quickly, and it was the Queen Street alternative music scene around the mid 80s. Um, so I was,
Sorry, Leslie, can we jump in here? We didn't mention at the beginning where you're from. You say
oh, I'm
Queen
from
Street.
Toronto. Yeah, so I'm from
Okay.
Toronto. And
Okay.
so I grew up in Willowdale, which is just a little bit north of downtown. And I guess they call it North York now. So for the first part of my art school, I was traveling by transit back and forth. And then I had decided my parents were very much kind of like wanted to coddle me and didn't want me to move out. So I was just like, okay, fine, I'll take the subway. But after things got, I mean, it got like, yeah, I got really immersed in what was going on down there. So I moved out. So that's really when it began. So moved out into a big loft. And the old warehouses downtown used to be sort of like empty warehouses, and you had to put in either your own kitchen or your own bathtub or whatever it is, and usually share it. So I found a place, and then three of us were sharing it, and it was big enough that I could do huge abstract paintings. I think it used to be a gallery before we moved in, and we built lofts um, with ladders, and we threw big parties and all kind of stuff. And then I had a couple of big art exhibitions in there. But between doing my work at art college and doing some of my work at home, I had about, well, I don't know, probably about 15 extra large paintings. And so they were all brightly colored abstracts. And, you do anything when you're young. It just doesn't really matter. You just do whatever you feel like. Um, I had a student loan, so I wasn't stuck. But artists generally are really frugal, so I didn't really have to spend much. We don't eat much. Um, had a couple of exhibitions, but anyways, getting on with that, my life really wasn't all about music. Only in those first few years, we started to record and tour a little bit across to Vancouver, from Toronto to Vancouver, and then back to Toronto. The second time we went Toronto to Vancouver, and then all the way down to California and across um, to Texas and back up again. But that's not even the interesting part either. It's basically it's just the beginning of the story because that's where I discovered Arizona. And Arizona was something that I discovered on that tour in 1987, 88. And I thought, oh, wow, I've never seen a sky like this and the way the sun, bounces off everything. And it was just brilliant. We came back and I finished art school. The band stayed together for a couple years. I started working in art. I started making props. I worked for companies that were building sets and props, and then I also started working on my own. I was also making different series for different exhibitions I was having. At one point, I was making a series of circus midway themed items, and I wanted to make a clown series. So it was a clown head series, and then they all had different hats, and the hats were melded and sort of joined into their heads, and it was all kind of googly gorp, but it brightly colored. Um, but all my sculptures led to me getting to do storefront sculptures for people. On Queen Street, I did three different stores. One was a hair salon, and I did like a bouffante, and then one was like a sort of a men's kind of punk rock sort of haircut, and the other one was long curly hair, and it was all in fiberglass above the hair salon. There were a lot of cool things happening in Queen Street West, and I was a big part of it. But things change, and we're talking about time. So that's what happens. Art school finishes. I'm working on my own as an artist, but you never know what's going to happen. Am I going to make enough money? Is my own work going to get, accepted and valued? When I was building the props for the different stores and things, then I had to hire someone to install them. For example, what was it, a 5-foot swordfish that I had built, and it had to be outside a fish restaurant, so it was fiberglass. And I had to hire someone to install it, and it had to be installed so that it wouldn't break. And it was hollow on the inside, but it was made with welded steel. And it was just became too much for me. I did a lot of those things. The lizards were easier for the Mexican food company. I did a bunch of lizards for the front of the store on the outside and inside. I did a bunch of Mexican related, all paper mache stuff. And so I did those things for a while. And um, I moved, I guess I moved around a lot too. So the thing was, that's the problem when you're a musician. And especially when you go on tour for 2 months or 3 months and you don't want to pay your rent while you're gone, you'll end up leaving. And then when you come back, you don't have a place to go. So that was the kind of beginning of me just moving all the time. And then eventually, after it was about 3 years and the band broke up, I moved again and always into warehouses. I had 3 or 4 or 5 different warehouses. They were great for art making. And then eventually, there I was. By the time I was 27, I was still, kind of messing around in all that. Then I had my first real relationship, and I thought, oh, wow, this is great. I can be a real person in a real relationship because I had never really paid much attention to that. I never thought that you look at yourself with the people around you. It just didn't dawn on me. It was just me being an artist, being a musician. It didn't involve me having a partner or a family or having children or anything. I just wasn't thinking about it. So there's another thing about time. And I think like you should know what you want. If that is what you want, well, maybe if that was what I wanted, I would have known. But obviously it didn't happen. But I was with, my first relationship was my first love for about 3 years. We lived together. And then things didn't really pan out. There was just a lot of stress around with all of us. And so I moved out into a storefront, and I had always wanted a storefront. I wanted, those big glass storefronts with the glass, um, stained glass windows at the top and the bay
Mhm.
windows and the pillars and things like that. And there was one down the street. So my boyfriend at the time, the one I was living with, and he was a carpenter and a designer. He fixed it up for me on the inside because it was just a mess. I don't know what was going on in there. I think it was just a bunch of homeless people or something, but we had to renovate it. And then I got the landlord to put in a shower because it was just a toilet and a sink. So eventually I was able to live in it, and I started teaching art classes there and working on my art projects.
Mm.
I guess I was there for almost 6 years and working, playing in different bands and things like that, and trying to make my way in art, doing a lot of shows, art fairs, art exhibitions, um, selling, working, this, that, and the other. And it was, I guess it was within about 6 months after the relationship broke up, I decided that I needed a break and I needed to get away. And I decided to take what I called a sabbatical. And I decided to go to Arizona because that was a place that I always wanted to go. And I hadn't been there since, what was it, 1987 or 88? And now it was 1995. It was 7 years later. It's like, I'm going. I found a way. And the whole thing is a long story too, but there are so many fantastic stories about time and spending a year in an artist um, co-op kind of place in the mountains. And it was half kind of like hippies and then deteriorating buildings because it had been a ghost town since the copper mines had shut down. This place called Jerome, it's about 30 minutes south of Sedona with the Red Rocks. So I started writing about my experiences. When I came back from Jerome, I decided there were so many cool things that were happening and people I had met in weird situations that I wanted to write it down so that I didn't forget it. And that's where my memoirs started in 1996. And now it's what, oh my God, is it 2026? I don't know if that's 30 or 40 years. My math isn't very good. But I don't know, Linda, if you want to know all the things that happened in Jerome. And then I went to Santa Fe because I wanted to promote my art. And I had slides and biographies and all kinds of things. I mean, we didn't have cell phones and things like that. Nothing was digital. So if you wanted to promote your art, you take it with a real camera. And instead of making photographs, you make slides so they can put them in the projector and look at your
Yep.
work. And you have to mail them to somebody. And
Yes,
that costs money too. Um, so
exactly.
I was trying to promote myself, but at the
Sure.
same time, I'm flying off the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of stories from Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Santa Fe. Um, and eventually, when I came back because I thought I should tie up some loose ends. I had sublet my storefront, and I had left a kitty cat who was a stray that I had taken in. I left my cat with a person who sublet my place. And I remember actually I came back halfway through my trip because I needed to come back and collect some more money. So I worked just for my mom for a week. She gave me some more money, so I went. I took the cat with me because my cat had been abandoned. I don't know what happened, why the person wasn't staying in my place or wasn't there much. I took the cat and I went. So then I was gone for another, 5 or 6 months. When I came back, I wanted to tie up some loose ends and then return back. But what had happened when I was away, first of all, my cat died in Arizona. I don't know if she got bit by a snake or something weird because I heard cries from under the schoolhouse. We all had studios in this big old Mingus High School. It's the old Jerome High School, Mingus High. And they were just big rooms with huge windows and a heater in each room. And it just overlooked the entire valley. It was pretty kind of creepy too because in the night we had to keep all the lights off. We didn't want anyone to know we were living there. Um, but anyways, I did finally decide to come back, but I wanted to do something with my time. I wanted to do something with myself. It's just not flying off the seat of my pants. It's like I'm trying to get an exhibition. I'm trying to get people to buy my work. And I did sell paintings. I traded paintings for a bed and breakfast for 2 nights and this
Mm.
sort of thing in Santa Fe. But I did sell some art actually on my way down there. I did a show in Palm Springs. I sold some art. So the whole thing is just very much, you can see I'm a very whimsical person off the seat of my pants. And like, I'm not even thinking about my life or my career well, yeah, I wanted to be an artist, but I don't know. I thought that was my goal. Um, when I decided I had to come back and regroup, I ended up crashing my car on the way home. I crashed it just after I came north of the Canadian border. So I think I came through Detroit or Sarnia. I think I came through Sarnia, and the next place was London, and I crashed just before London, and I never made it home that night. So
Mm.
everything that was packed on my station wagon and the roof racks were broken, and I guess my car could not be retrieved, and I had to be retrieved from somebody, but I wasn't hurt in the hospital or anything. I guess the tow truck driver just took me to the hotel, at any hotel. So I stayed at a Holiday Inn and I thought, oh my God, I almost died last night. It was just too weird. And then I had to, so I eventually I got home within the next few days and tried putting all the pieces together, and all my things had been stolen out of my studio. And it just didn't make sense to me because I mean, I had packed it all up downstairs and boxed up my tools and things. And because I had the main floor and I had the basement, and I left like the main floor, tried to just clear it out so it could be utilized by the next person. But all my boxes had been gone through in the basement, and stuff had been stolen. And I guess I heard through the grapevine that the guy was a drug addict and he was selling things to get money. But it wasn't it wasn't great for me to say the least. The only thing that was really there was the futon. And there I had just had a crash. And so putting the pieces together wasn't easy. And that I think that's when I started to realize, oh God, life is not easy. Like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Luckily I wasn't like hurt, but I had physiotherapy on my neck or my back. So within a year, it takes time to kind of start getting better. And exactly a year later, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it was terminal pancreatic cancer. And I was still trying to, overcome and recover from all I had gone through. And then all of a sudden, my dad is going to die. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is just, it was too much. You didn't even have time to think. You're just like, okay, now I had to help with all whatever family chores. And he was in and out for tests. And um, that went really quickly. And it was only 6 months and 2 days later, he actually died. So then, okay, like what I call is the bottom fell out because now the family isn't the family anymore. And when you lose a person, everything changes. Um, and I felt like I was at the height of my career. Even though I came back from the accident, I finished all the paintings I had started, and I had gone to an intensive summer school for fine art in Santa Fe, and I had brought back a bunch of pieces, and I had a huge exhibition and did really well. So I was getting back on my feet with all that, and all of a sudden, after the death in the family, I don't know, remember how it happened, but I inherited a pastry business. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, it's only 2 days a week. You have to drop off the frozen goods at the bakeries. And I thought, oh God, how am I going to do everything? And so I just found it was hard to cope. And then it was like, hey, now what am I going to do? So it kept coming back to now what I'm going to do. And this is how time is related because you don't realize, okay, now you're, how old are you? Say I was 27 when I met my first boyfriend, and I guess I was like 30, 31 when I went away. And I came back, I guess I was 31, 32. By this time, I was like, I'm in my mid 30s. Now what am I going to do?
Mm.
So guess what came up? Arizona. I want to go back to Arizona. So this is when some more crazy stuff happened. And again, moving and moving and moving and having a different studio and having a home and a loft and then a workshop. And I did a lot of things though. I did a Toronto moose. I did a 10-foot clown head uh, that had sort of an open mouth, and then where you could shoot the golf ball right up into the mouth and it would come down through the bow tie and come out to bounce off the perimeter and go into the hole. It was like a mini golf thing for Hazelton Lanes downtown.
Nice. Yeah, for people that don't know what a Toronto Moose is, can you
Okay, so
share what they
in
are?
the year 2000, we had a mayor called Mayor Mel Lastman, and I guess he had this crazy idea, which was kind of cool, that there would be, I don't know, I think it's like 2,000 moose in the city. So they not necessarily hired artists, but you could submit a design, and then if you were chosen, they would give you an honorarium to pay for your materials and drop off a moose to your studio or to your wherever it was. And back then there was this thing going on. So a lot of the artists made them, and they had these big, huge horns on them, which were really desirable. I don't, for some reason, everybody wanted the horns, and they were stealing these big moose horns. So I decided I would do mine without the horns. So I made a fiberglass sun hat to put on it with the ears coming through. And I made a flower power uh, snapshot moose because I had the old camera hanging around his head. And I did that one in fiberglass too. So it was the flower power snapshot moose. And eventually it got bought up by Kodak. So that was kind of cool. And I've got pictures of me with Mel Lastman. Um, there was just a lot, so many stories, and I mean, I don't even know which ones to tell, but um, I guess I don't want this to get too long-winded, but it was around that time, it was after 2000, so my dad died in 98, and by the time 2000 came, and it was 2001, I guess, when I decided to go travel again. I got involved in an art fair. Like I used to send off an application with my slides, and they would say, "Okay, we've juried you in. Your work is good enough to be part of this art fair." And this one was down in Tucson, and it was a plein air competition, which means you paint outside for 10 days, and then you can choose three or four of your pieces and submit them for the prize. And I happened to be painting in caustic at the time, and caustic means burning in. Caustic means burn, so it's melting wax with pigments on a burner until it's like smooth enough to put the paint onto any surface. And I was painting on barn woods and plywoods and things like that, making landscapes. And so I thought, well, I'll go down there and here I am. I'm bringing my camp stove and a fold-up table and a little stool and all these things that I need to make my molten wax and make my wax paintings. But I didn't realize it was going to be in the hot sun, and it was so hot that the paint was like bleeding into the boards instead of sticking to the boards how it should. So then I had to fill up a cooler with ice and put the boards in there and keep them cold and take them out just before I used them. Anyways, it was fun. I did that. Well, the end story with that is I met an artist who was another female who said, "Oh, I'd love to have a girlfriend who's an artist down here." I said, "Because I'm trying to get myself to move down here." She says, "I'm going to help you move and you can share my studio till you get a place." And I was like, "Here comes my plan." So I went back to Toronto and I started making my plan. And it's like, now I have a connection down there. I need to find my own little place, and I need to whatever I call healing. I need healing. I've been through the accident. I've been through the loss. I'm trying to get my feet on the ground. I need to go away and just be myself. I got another cat, and so the cat was coming with me. So put the cat in the travel cage, and I had a van, and it was 2001, end of August. And I made plans. I gave up my studio, gave up my apartment, either sold everything and who knows what, just whatever was with me, and went to the border and couldn't get through the border because well, I guess I answered one of the questions wrong. And they said, "When was the last time where you were there?" And I said, "Last year." And they saw on the computer that no, I was there a couple months ago. But I had forgotten that I went down there to book a casita. There was a little house, like a guest house I was going to be staying in. So I booked it for 6 months. So they said, pull over. And of course, they went through my whole van and all my stuff and all my notebooks and my calendars. And then they found the thing that said moving day. So they even found the lease. But for 6 months, I thought you're allowed to live down there for 6 months. Anyways, I was in trouble because I didn't have the proper paperwork that showed that I owned a home in Canada or had a job I was coming back to in Canada. So they gave me an opportunity to come up with that paperwork and come back to the border and show it to them because I said, I can get that for you. So then I was stuck just in hotels. But in any case, I went back and I got turned away again. And I thought, this is ridiculous, and nobody's going to like ruin my dream. So I came back home and had to figure out what am I going to do. And here the story changes again. So my ex-boyfriend calls me from out of the blue. He had moved to Quebec, Wakefield, and had a little log cabin and said, "Come and stay with me then." I'm like, I guess so. I have nowhere else to go, but I'm talking to a lawyer now and I have a lawyer appointment. So I went there to Quebec in Wakefield. It's like in the Gatineau Hills, just across from Ottawa. And I was on the phone with my lawyer. I was waiting for the appointment, and there I am on hold. And I guess they had the radio going on the phone, and it said, the plane has just hit the World Trade Tower, and it's
Mm,
burning, and the tower is falling. And as I was still on hold, then they came back and said another plane hit the other tower, and the other tower was
mm,
burning. And I was like, oh my God, what in the world? Like, how can this happen? And then someone came on and said, your lawyer can't come. She's actually stuck in New York. She can't come to the call. And so that whole plan dissolved
mm,
right then and there. And I had to give up, the first and last payment I had put on the casita. I had ordered a pull-out couch to go in there. Um, I had to drop the whole plan, so I stayed with John.
mm,
And now instead of being in Tucson, I'm in Wakefield, Quebec.
mm,
So what kept me going was my paintings. So I got my burner out and I started melting wax again and making landscape paintings. And then I thought, how can anyone make a living down here? There's nothing going on.
mm,
And then I realized, oh, we couldn't really live together. The same thing happened that happened before. And I thought, now I got to do something else. And this came a time where you don't really know what you're doing and you have to just either go with the universe. And I remember every day I would try to do whatever meditation, and I had learned yoga, and I was just trying to open my mind to whatever the universe was going to give me.
mm,
And I guess what came out of it was I'm going to go to university. I'm going to move across the river to Ottawa, and I'm going to take psychology courses. And that's what I did. So then I'm in my late 30s in university. And it was just like, you don't think about what you're doing in life. It's just happening. But one thing after the other, it's about perseverance, really. It's about perseverance. How long can you keep going? And, when do you stop and take a break and say, I can't do this anymore?
mm,
But no, I guess I don't know where I got it. I just had the gumption or whatever you call it. Both my parents had been entrepreneurs, so I kind of knew how to make things happen for myself. Or I didn't know how, I just knew that I wanted to and thought that maybe I could, but things hadn't really panned out. So even during university, I kept doing my art and kept having exhibitions and big exhibitions and selling work. Um, but it was a long stretch, and the full-time university was a bit much for me, so I pared down to part-time. And then I finally completed the 4-year psychology course. And then I was like, oh, I don't even know what to do now. I need, to take something because an undergrad isn't enough. And what was I going to do? So, of all the crazy things, I applied for the special course in Kingston at Queen's, and it was an artist in community arts education program. And you had to have an extensive portfolio to get in. And sure enough, I was able to put together the portfolio, and they accepted
mm,
me. And I thought, oh, great, I get to do this fabulous specialized, you know, art education. So I'll be a teacher. I'll have a Bachelor of Education. But deep down, I didn't really want to be a teacher. I was teaching before this. I taught out of my studio on Gladstone Avenue.
yeah.
Um, I taught more before I had a teaching degree than I did after. So there goes another year, and I graduate with a teaching degree uh, and a Bachelor of Psychology. And then I'm in Kingston, and I've already been away from Toronto for 8 years, but I had a lot of friends in Ottawa, and I had to decide, am I going back to Toronto or am I going back to Ottawa? And again, I didn't know what to do. Um, and there's a lot more to these stories too. I've pared it down, but I ended up just going back to Ottawa, and then it's like the bottom fell out again. But it wasn't so bad that I had any major downfalls. It was like, okay, I can go to the food bank for a little while. It was like 2008 and the economy was not good. And I had
Mhm.
2 degrees and I had 3 part-time jobs and they still weren't enough. And there's just difficulties. And eventually I got a full-time job. I was working as activities coordinator in a retirement residence. I also worked in drop-in centers for mental health. It was like a recreologist kind of position. But um, I couldn't figure out really what I wanted to do. And at this point, I thought, "Oh, like, I really needed a full-time job." So when they hired me at this brand new retirement residence, I thought, okay, this is great. Finally, I will have like an income.
Mhm.
Um, but that one didn't pan out either. You know what? I've had so many jobs that didn't pan out, and I can't say exactly why or what, but it's people or it's me or it's I don't know, something about attention to detail or, like as I can hyper focus or not pay attention. And I've
Mhm.
got that going on. So I try my best and then somebody thinks I'm doing a bad job and they don't want me there anymore. Something like that always happens. And
Mhm.
so I got on the telemarketing team and I was selling orchestra tickets. Um, and that was okay because it was just like 5 to 9 at night. And I was kind of my own boss. Nobody was watching over my shoulder. I could sell subscriptions to
Mhm.
that. And then after that, I sold subscriptions to theater. And then I decided, I don't want to be in Ottawa anymore. I want to go home. And that's kind of when things came to a head. So you see all these years of trying to figure out what I was doing. And then I decided, yeah, I want to go back to Toronto. So, instead of going by myself, I got together with this guy who was a neighbor of mine who also wanted to go to Toronto. So I said, okay, you know what? We'll try and go together and we'll get a place together. And make a long story short, it didn't work out. And um, I also got, so I had a telemarketing job waiting for me in Toronto. But the place I got to live was so far away from it, and all the commuting was so bad, and just like the energy of things was so difficult. Though then I got a full-time job, and then that didn't pan out. And I was just like, no, I'm leaving this shared home. I've lost the job. I've left Ottawa, and I'm going back downtown because the place we got, it wasn't downtown. And I had been in Queen West and Roncesvalles and Parkdale and West Queen West. I had been in all those places for so long, and when we had come back from Ottawa, we didn't. We were up closer to York Mills or Keele or something up near Yorkdale Plaza. So, anyways, I got out of that and I moved downtown and I said, "You know what? I'm getting a studio again and I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to start either teaching classes, whatever I can do." And this is when it got so bad that basically I had to throw my hands up in the air.
Mhm.
So I lost the studio and then I lost the shared home that I was in, and that wasn't my fault either.
Mhm.
None of it was my fault. The lady who rented us the rooms, she had like a paranoid mental health breakdown and locked everybody out and called the police and all kinds of stuff. So we were going through all this crap right at the same time as I had a little art show. And I thought if I can sell a couple paintings, I'll be able to keep my studio. And sure enough, I didn't sell a couple of paintings and I wasn't able to keep my studio. So I
Mhm.
lost my studio and my home. And
Mhm.
when these things happen, I tend to have a lot of accidents. I fall down and I hurt myself and, I break something or I get sick, which I hadn't talked about either, but they've been happening all through my life.
Mhm.
So at the same time, there I am injured again or sick or whatever, and on antibiotics or who knows what, right? From all these different things. And now what am I going to do? I have no place to go, but my family. They were always there for
Mhm.
me. I was so fortunate that my family through thick and thin, would keep me from falling into the gutter. Because you see so many people in this world that cannot make it.
Mhm.
And I think it's because they don't have support. Now, I had that support. So the family took all my belongings and put them into storage unit. So whatever was in my apartment and my bedroom and all those things from the home and all those
Mhm.
things from the studio, they all went into storage unit. Luckily, the
Mhm.
studio was in a storage unit building, so I was able just
Yeah.
to move it. And that's when I thought something is wrong here. And of course, I had been in and out of depression over the years because I couldn't figure out kind of which way was up and where my strengths were and why I was,
Mhm.
floundering at times, but successful at other times. And at this point, I didn't want to keep going anymore. I can't remember the order of how things happened because I needed to get a job and so I got another job and I was helping people, seniors that needed companions, or turned out I was cleaning their apartments for them. And I had two university degrees, and I was still
Mhm.
living, with my folks. My mom had remarried, and so living with my mom and my stepdad, and trying to find a place. But I guess it was all too much. I did find a place. I think I stayed with them for maybe 6 weeks. I did find a place. I moved back down to Parkdale. But that was when I just couldn't handle it. I threw my hands up in the air and said, you know what? I don't know what's wrong, but I walked myself over to the old CAMH building on College and Spadina.
And CAMH is.
Is the Center for Mental Health and Addiction. So it's a specialized hospital. I mean, nowadays you can go to any hospital, but this was a special one. And I was never too proud because I had studied psychology. I was like, you know what? Somebody has to tell me what the problem is here. And I have to sit there and wait. And then I had to go back the next day. Oh, they gave me subway tokens to get back again. And okay, we're going to set you up with a specialist and they'll give you some tests or whatever it is. And you can get government assistance or who knows what. They give you a social worker or who knows. And so I picked myself up. But at the same time, the doctor, one of my family doctor was telling me there was a lump on my throat, in my neck. And she
Hmm.
said, "You've got to go get that biopsied. I don't really like the look of that." And I'm like, whatever, I just don't want to do anything anymore. I just don't care anymore. So I went and I got it biopsied. And then they came back and they said it's benign, it's not cancerous, but they want to remove it anyways. And this is when I really surrendered. I'm just like, you know what? Put me on the stretcher and wheel me away. I don't want any responsibility for my life anymore.
Hmm.
Somebody else take over. So they wheel me away and they cut through and take half my thyroid out. And here I'm thinking, whatever. I mean, I'm not even thinking anymore. They had told me it wasn't cancerous, but after it came back from the test, it was cancerous. So now I
Hmm.
had to go for a second operation because they want to take the other half out. They want the whole thing out. In the meantime, I'm just like, you know what? Whatever. So I had a basement apartment. Luckily, I got help. So I got help from there are different community organizations that can help people in different ways find their strengths, find them jobs, give them support,
Hmm.
things like that. And I got a job in a drop-in center. And
Nice.
I healed from my surgery and I became a group facilitator and I helped others find motivation, courage, and hope. And I worked there for about 6 years,
Nice.
in different capacities, working with people and helping people. Um, I mean, this is a long life already. By that time, I was 50,
Hmm.
but I've been in and out of all kinds of things. And I thought I was okay, but I wasn't. I wasn't okay because I went with a guy who I thought would be okay, and we wanted to, try and have a life together. And um, I guess, he asked me to marry him. I don't know. I guess we wanted to, but I didn't realize that at the time he was becoming more and more controlling. And then as soon as I said yes, he became even worse.
Hmm.
And it just, there was a lot of gaslighting. There was a lot of like, I knew psychology and I thought,
Hmm.
why am I the one to blame for somebody else getting angry all the time? Why is it always my fault?
Hmm.
And things were coming to a head, and I went and got help again. And I said, "This is going on. Is this in my head or not?" And I was told this is the circle of power and control. The only way out of it is 2 feet out the door when they're
Yeah.
not looking.
Yeah.
That's it. So of course I did that, and I got my
Hmm.
life back. But it's just my life has been going like this. all my life. So after that
Mm-hmm.
happened, I had to get a full-time job and I
Mm-hmm.
worked my butt off. 12 and a half hour shifts. I got my security license and I worked in a hospital and then I worked in a homeless shelter. And then I worked, in different kinds of like event centers and arenas and things like that. Then I got, my officer's certificate to write parking tickets and all kinds of things. And I thought, oh, maybe I can be a police officer. Well, here I am. I don't know where I get all these ideas from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but here I am now, and now I'm in my 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And where did time go? So finally, at this point, I realized that, you know what? There's not that much time left in life. And what am I going to do? Because I didn't have a partner and I didn't have children. And yes, I always have pets, but time. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm 60, then if I can live to be 80, then maybe I have 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm writing my memoirs, and I've already put two books out. One is on being a girl drummer in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small booklet, and the other one is snippets of memoirs entitled I Danced with the Dog. And that's going to be in the memoirs. I danced with the dog on the day I got the art college acceptance in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got these stories and I've got these art
Nice.
projects, and I'm still doing what I'm doing and I'm managing.
How are you feeling now?
I feel like I don't know, in a way I feel kind of strong. I feel like I've conquered I've conquered 60
Nice.
years. But
I
like
love
I
that.
never really gave up. I say like I gave up a little
Oh,
bit, but I never really gave up. No.
no, I just, your perseverance is phenomenal. Where did you get that, or your resiliency? Where do you think where did that come from?
Well, that's a good question.
Hmm.
I just always had in my head that, there are only two choices. It's either, bury your head in the sand and leave it there, or get up and try and do something. It's either you're going to be
Hmm.
alive or you're going to be dead. There's no in between.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got, I kept hearing this. I know you didn't necessarily say it, but you just kept saying yes to something. You kept saying yes.
I think so.
That's, that's so, that's profound. It really is. It
Well,
just
isn't
like,
it strange? Why would you keep saying yes after you failed so many times? I don't know.
but did you see it as that, or were you saying yes to life?
I was saying yes to life, I think, because I didn't think I had a choice, because life was either going to be a life that had some value and had some meaning,
Hmm.
or it wasn't worth it. But I never had it in me to not want to be alive. So I had to do
Mm-hmm.
whatever I could to keep going. I think that's where the
Hmm.
perseverance came from.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do you think were some of the other things that kept you sort of grounded and, but at the same time, like balance is the word that comes to me because it's like you were having trying to stay grounded, but at the same time you were trying to flow with honoring your creativity and this it's like you never gave up your creativity, which I think I mean, I do a lot of workshops and like deliver workshops, and one big thing that people say is I've lost my creativity. I've given up on my creativity. And you're somebody that it just sounds like you never have.
I never did. No, I never did give up on it because, in a way, I felt like it was all I had. Like, if I don't have anything, I have the ability to make things. I can build
Mm,
things, I can make things, I can paint things bright colors. I can, I have a knack for, I'm a colorist. So, everything I make, none of it is like dismal and dreary. It's all bright and happy.
mm,
Um, so I think it made me happy. It makes me happy to make art. So maybe
Mm.
I just kept making art because maybe I found it was the only thing that was able to make me happy or make me feel
Hmm.
useful or
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it ends up being the thread that held things together, which is really strange because for a while there, when I was having mental health issues and thinking, why can't I stay on my feet? And I was thinking it's all because I'm trying to live my life as an artist and part of it as a musician. And it's like, this is the reason because I'm an artist that I'm having all this trouble with all these downfalls. And I was really, feeling strongly about that. And then it turns out, within a few years later, it turns out that I was starting to realize that the art wasn't the thing that brought me down. It was the thing that kept me together.
Mm. True. Yeah. Wow. But why is that? Why in society are we, how do I put this? Like, artists get a bad rap. Like, it's always been like starving artist. It's always been like, uh,
Why do artists get a bad rap? I
well,
thought that it was
yeah, like,
because we're not valued. That's what I thought. I think I've spent my whole life trying to feel valued. But
okay.
artists get bad raps because I don't know why they're not worthy or valued because people won't buy their art or pay them enough money to live. That's one of the reasons I wanted to go down to the USA at the time. Now, things have changed now in
Sure.
2026, but this was in the 90s and in the 2000s I
Hmm.
thought maybe there was more money or more art patrons down there or more value for an artist. I don't
Hmm.
know. But it was really tough. I'm Canadian, and even Toronto is a huge city. But it's like also being a musician. You can be the greatest, but you don't always make it big. It depends on who you know and if you get, someone to
Hmm.
promote you and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting. Food for thought there.
Hmm.
Um, so you and I have spoken outside of here, obviously, and you have a workshop you've built,
Hmm.
and I'd love to have you share a bit about that.
Okay, so I guess when I was working in the drop-in center for all those years and I was facilitating groups, um, often I was facilitating a group that was already, written about this is what you're going to do in the group. So I decided to write my own group.
Hmm.
Um, so I put together 5 modules or 5 or 8 modules, I can't remember. And then that got me into thinking and learning and studying on how to help people in a presentation sense. And since I had all these wild and crazy sculptures and paintings, and they were all on slides, and now at this point they had all been put into my computer, I made a slideshow of all these things. And then I put the slides together with hope and motivation, perseverance, reaching out, building bridges, finding your strengths. And I would flip through the different slides showing I made these things and, I had these downfalls, but then I made these things. And people started to watch them. And when I did my presentations within the circuit, it was very motivating and it was well accepted everywhere. And, I felt good about sharing and helping other people to find their strengths and to get inspired. So I did that for a little while, but it didn't really continue because I changed careers at that time.
Hmm.
So I kind of boxed it up. But recently, uh, now that like I'm not working, I can
Hmm.
do my promotional things. Uh, Now I'm trying to revamp that, and I've taken some entrepreneurial courses, um,
Hmm.
how to better sell my art, how to better sell my presentation, and so that's going to be up and running sometime in the fall or the winter. Um, it just seems like there's always a lot to do.
Hmm.
And in a way, that's again time you can't really push things. I mean, how long is it going to take? Is it going to take weeks? Is it going to take months? It's the same thing with the memoirs. How long is it going to take?
Hmm.
You have to stay healthy. You have to do your, eating
Hmm.
well and healthy and, exercising and all these things. And then you have to fit fit in these other things and little part-time things that you can maybe make some money off. I don't know. But I'm working it out and
It,
I'm feel happy. I feel more successful than I ever have been, even though I don't have anything tangible.
hmm
Mhm.
Nice. I like what you said when we talked before about that workshop is that people see this quote me if I'm stop me if I'm wrong here, but is people were seeing what you created, yet they didn't see the struggles. And to see creation, I'm paraphrasing here, uh, to see the creation of what somebody has made, created, we assume there was no struggle.
That's right.
And to suddenly understand that, oh, you created that, but oh my gosh, look what you were, we just never know what somebody's going through. And it's this empathy.
That's exactly what it is. That hit a lot of people. Like people see these wild things and think, "Oh, look at this person doing all this wild stuff. This is amazing. This is amazing. This person is amazing. They're so great." And it's like, but then you talk to them and you hear their stories and you hear all the trials and tribulations and all the adversities they've gone through, and you think, "Oh my God." And they still were able to do this. And so it's true. You see something and you make up your own kind of idea of who's behind that. Then when you get to talk to somebody who did that and you realize what they've gone through, I think it just is more meaningful.
Hmm
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's um, a reality check to it almost that life has its ups and downs and its ins and outs and its valleys and peaks and we all go through that and we like again as I said we never know and it's
No.
nice to honor that in somebody and to bear witness to each of each other that yeah I've had my ups times and I've had my down times and I'm going to bear witness to both
Hmm.
so I love that
It's giving yourself what you need. It's knowing
yes
that you're going to bear witness to your good times and your bad times. So if you need to rest, you're going to rest.
yes
You need to sleep or you need to eat something that, is going to make you feel good, or you need to take a few days away, whatever. You have to figure out how to nurture yourself
I love that. Yes, absolutely.
so
Yeah,
you can be your best.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go back to the or the story I was quoting before because this takes us into our time shift and our time. And you've spoken this, you've weaved time in so beautifully as you've shared with us here. But there's just a few words here. She puts time drips, freezes, stretches, and stops. But there's even more to it. And I love the idea that when has it dripped in my life? When has it what has been frozen? Feels like it's stopping. When is it stretching? Uh, How have you, if you were to talk about time over your lifetime, how would you articulate it?
I would say, that time is something that I think in the younger years we don't pay any attention to. At least I didn't, because of my whimsical nature and wanting to pursue all my creative ventures. I wasn't thinking about time. It was just like whatever's happening is happening. But as I go on, and I remember, when someone's saying to me, okay, you're taking a sabbatical away and you're going to the desert for 6 months or 10 months or 12 months or whatever it is, how are you going to make this time meaningful and useful? It's not just wasted.
Mm.
So that kind of, I've had, I've had people with insight, talking to me about different things. So I think that's one thing that's helped. And that was one of the reasons why I took that art school, intensive program when I was in New Mexico. I thought, well, if I don't do anything, I finished a 6 week intensive art program.
Mhm.
Um, and I could say I had that. And that was interesting too. There were so many interesting things, but how does time? I don't know. I just think that in our younger years, we don't really notice time. You don't notice that you're 31 or you're 35 or you're 38. And I think it's only until after and then you're 58 and you're like, where's time going?
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
so it changes. So now I'm more aware of time, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I'm trying to be easy enough on myself so I don't burn myself out.
Yes. Big one there. Big one. Trying to fit it all into time.
Yeah, it takes, I can maybe that's the stretching it. Stretch yourself
Mhm.
into time
Exactly. Yeah.
instead of letting time, do its thing to you. You know,
Stretch it out.
stretch it out.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Interesting. But that you said something there. I think it's key here is like this time needs to be meaningful and useful, not wasted. But who's to judge that? Has that become a societal thing and a norm where, oh, you got to do this with your time? And who's to say it's wasted? If I'm happy and I'm joyful in that time, in that moment, in that space, is it wasted?
Yeah, I agree with you with that. I agree with you. Because I think people measure value and success with tangible things, like a degree. Even though it not necessarily you may have learned things and have some knowledge, but it doesn't mean that you're actually now utilizing that and making money.
Mm-hmm.
So that may not have been as valuable as people may have thought that was. Um, it's you're right. Who is judging it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a funny way to think about it. So it's a good question.
Good question to sort of close our
Mm,
time on, isn't it? Leave it that with everybody to ponder for a bit.
hmm
I'm so happy we did this.
Me
I'm
too.
so
Thank you
happy
so
you
much.
shared this and let us have a window into share your journey with us and let us have a window into your memoirs. Can't wait to read them when they do come out. And we will certainly put a link to your artwork and your website and anything. We're gonna have to put a picture of the moose in there too. Um,
True, true, true.
um,
Mm.
do you have any final words for those that are listening today? Whatever comes to your heart.
Um, I think what comes to me about all this is just inspiration. It's just like if you feel like you want to do something, that's what you need. You need the feeling of wanting to do something. Otherwise, nothing's important unless you really want it.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so it's inspiration. It's like find your inspiration. That's my thing. It's like I would like people to see me as an example, then use me to be inspired. I mean, like I say to people, what are your strengths? Even if you say you have no strengths, maybe you're a good listener.
Hmm.
Um, maybe, the things that you think aren't useful strengths, they can be anything, really. You're a good organizer. You're a true friend. You're loyal.
Hmm.
It could be anything. And what are your interests? What are you interested in? Everybody has an interest in something. Some people it's birds, other people it's planets.
Hmm.
Everybody has an interest. So find out do your soul searching, find out what interests you and what you might have strength in, and then reach out and reach out to the bridge. You have to go halfway up for somebody else to attach on the other end. You can't just expect sit back and say, something will just come to me. No, because that's where motivation and courage comes in. You have to step out.
Hmm.
So I hope
Yeah, I like that.
I've inspired people.
Oh, absolutely. And inspiration, it to me is action. Inspiration creates action. So thank you. Thank you,
Mm,
Leslie, for being with us.
you're very welcome, Linda.
And it has been an absolute pleasure to sit and chat with you tonight.
Yes, I'm glad to be part of this all. And
And thank you, our listeners, for being here and listening to this episode. At Inspire Me Forward, our belief is that we inspire others when we share our stories, and in turn, we share our collective connection. We let each other know that they're not alone in this big, beautiful world. There's a quote that goes, "The courage it takes to share one story might be the very thing someone else needs to open their heart to a brighter tomorrow." So we ask you if you would share it forward. You just never know who else needs to hear the words and wisdom shared in this episode here today. So stay well, stay connected, and stay inspired.